Hello, this is MrChabry. Now, this is going to be a longer one, and that's because there are so many water types swimming around in the rivers and the coast of Kalos. So, this is going to be a longer video, but we're going to get through all of these water types in all three dexes, the central, the coastal, and the mountain. You can guess the coastal is going to have a ton of water types. So, let's hop right into it. And speaking of hop, the very first Pokemon we're going to see is Greninja, the starter, that is a water type. Now, this is probably the strongest starter out of the three starters that we have access to. It is very fast with 122, has really good special attack, 103, and decent attack, 95. So you can run either physical or special. Defense-wise, it's pretty garbage, but you're not worried about the defense. You're worried about hitting things as hard as you can, as fast as you can, and that's the big thing, as fast as you can, and you can hit things pretty hard with this Pokemon. You can give it water moves, and it does have access to dark moves as well, so you can hit things hard. Give it Ice Beam. A lot of these water types have access to Ice Beam, actually, so really great. This is a strong choice if you want to go with the water starter. Next up is Simipour. Now, I've said many things about the Semi-Pokemon. Them being good Pokemon, I've never said, because they all are garbage. In fact, they get outclassed so quickly. You can see it's got decent attack and special attack, and decent speed, but so many water types will outclass this thing, and by the time you're about midway through the game, you're going to be wishing that this thing wasn't taking up a spot on your roster. So I would say just skip the Simipour. Early game, it might help, but it's just not a good Pokemon. Bibarel is an interesting Pokemon because this thing is kind of famous for being an HM Pokemon, but it's not really that good other than that. It has okayish attack, but it's not very fast in terms of speed. And you would think maybe being such a big, bulky looking Pokemon, it might have some bulk. No, its bulk is garbage too. And in fact, special attack is so low. Teaching this thing Surf, you don't want it to actually use that Surf in battle. It does have some interesting abilities like Simple. Now, when one Pokemon stat is raised, that amount is doubled. So, a Swords Dance will become something like a 4 times boost. But it's just not that good. I don't even know if it gets Swords Dance. I don't think it does. It doesn't. So, yeah, it's just not that great of a Pokemon. I would say Bibarel is a challenge run. I mean, normal type is interesting, but interesting doesn't give you victories. So, not that great of a water type. I would skip this thing. Azumarill, on the other hand, has some things that it can actually do decently well. And the big thing with it is this ability, Huge Power. Now, 50 isn't that great. 50 attack is not that great. It does have decent bulk, 80 on both defenses, and HP is 100, but it is slow, and it's not very hard at hitting. In fact, special attack is its highest stat, but Huge Power means that attack is going to be more like 100. Now, if you run this thing, giving it something like Belly Drum is actually really great, because you're going to max out that attack, and then you can run things like Aqua Jet, which can hit things really hard regardless of your speed stat. So that's what I would say focus on. Otherwise, Thick Fat is decent for if you're trying to run it as a bulkier Pokemon. Now, it's already resisting fire and ice, so it's not the best. But you can see here, it does have some decent resist, so you could probably get away with running it as more of a defensive Pokemon. And that Fairy typing gives it an immunity to Dragon, so it's a decent Pokemon. I would say this could have a place on your team. There's other Pokemon that are better that don't require a setup like Azumarill does, but it could run, and it could probably work pretty well. Next up is Gyarados. Now, Gyarados is a good Pokemon. It's always been a good Pokemon. Water Flying, not the best typing, but that Flying type gives it a ground immunity, and it gives it a few resistances like Bug and Fighting. Now, you want to watch out for electric type moves. Any spark sneezed in this thing's direction will knock it out. And Intimidate is a good ability because you're going to lower your opponent's attack. And that's good because if you look at its stats, defense is lower than special defense. Intimidate is going to balance that out a little bit. It has okay-ish speed. But what you're running this thing for is that attack stat. And it does have good bulk too. So you can run something like a Dragon Dance set. Help out that speed. Boost that attack up even more. And you can hit things really hard. That's not even to mention the Mega form that this thing comes packed with. So it switches flying with Dark, which is also a pretty good typing. And that attack stat just gets raised up so much higher. Speed doesn't really change, but its bulk gets boosted. And with a Dragon Dance, this thing's going to outspeed so many things. So I think Gyarados is a great set. Remember, these Megas are going to be more later in your playthrough. So Mega Gyarados might be something that maybe in the post-game you're running rampant with. But Gyarados in its own form is pretty good as well. Now, speaking of Water Dark types, Crawdaunt actually can come in and do some decent work as well. So Crawdaunt, Water Dark, it is slow. You're not running this thing for speed. But what it comes packing with is that 120 attack. It can hit things hard. Plus, Hyper Cutter. You don't have to worry about the opponent's Intimidate. And most people run Adaptability. That might be a hidden ability. But Adaptability would be great if you had that because it's going to boost your Water and Dark type moves even more. Has decent bulk, 85. You can run some special attacks on it with 90, but that attack stat is what you're wanting. And looking at Swords Dance is probably the best thing to go for. You know, boost that attack even more. Throw Aqua Jet on it. Not have to worry about that dismal speed. This thing could actually be pretty good too. And I think you get it pretty early in the game with Qwilfish. So this would be a pretty good choice. Next up is Seaking. Seaking is a Pokemon I always liked. I always thought it was cool, but it gets outclassed pretty easily. One thing it does have going for it is that 92 attack. That's mostly it. Swift Swim, you can outspeed some things, which is pretty cool, but it's just not that great of a Pokemon. It's outclassed so much by a lot of the other Pokemon. You can see here, it's got Garbage special attack, but they're still suggesting Scald just because it's not that great. Waterville, you can, you cannot be burnt. So, I mean, that's decent. You can help you out with that attack stat. Lightning Rod, I think that's a hidden ability, but that thing would be great if you ran that. But yeah, it's outclassed by so many things, though. So think of it as a challenge run Pokemon. Sharpedo. Now, this thing is also pretty good. Now, the thing that this thing comes with when compared to maybe another Water Dark type like Crawdaunt, this thing comes with some great speed. This thing hits hard and it hits fast. It doesn't have much in terms of bulk, but if you're running Sharpedo, you don't want to worry about that bulk. You want to hit things hard and knock them out quickly. Rough Skin, that would be better if, you know, you're focusing on, say, your defenses. But Speed Boost is the way to go, and that unfortunately is a hidden ability. But this thing is pretty fast. Now, the Mega is only in Oris, so you're not going to be able to access this in X and Y. But say you go into this thinking, okay, maybe I'll drag this in, you know, into a Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire playthrough. Well, those are pretty good stats right there. You can see the speed gets boosted. A lot of people in competitive, what they'll do is have Speed Boost as its base form, protect the first turn, get that boost in speed, Mega, and hit thing with Crunch, Strong Jaw Crunch. But yeah, Sharpedo is a great Pokemon. It's hard to use, very frail, but you can hit things really hard. Golduck is a Pokemon that is unfortunately outclassed as well. Decent special attack, has okay bulk, okay speed, but in a playthrough, okay isn't going to give you the victory. Think of this as a challenge run Pokemon. It's decent. It can do some things. It has some capabilities with Cloud 9. Just ignore your opponent's weather. Swift Swim, get a boost in speed, but other than that, it just doesn't have much. Damp is not that useful as an ability anymore. All it does is prevent explosion. Moves at Koga Bluey or Aftermath, so outclassed. Now, Blastoise. Now, I want to point this out. Think about it this way. How fast we went from the Kalos starter to the Kanto starter in the other videos. We just now got to the Kanto starter. There's still a lot more water types. So, yeah, this is a pretty packed part of the decks. Anyway, Blastoise, if you want to run this thing, this is probably my favorite Kanto starter. And you can see the idea of this thing is focus more on that bulk. It has 100 defense, 105 special defense. So you can take some hits, and special attack's not that great, but you're going to be able to Mega Evolve this thing and get 135 special attack. So this thing is made to take hits, hit things back, and that Mega Launcher is great because Pulse moves get a boost. Think Dragon Pulse, Dark Pulse, Water Pulse. Those moves will get a boost. You can run like maybe a Rapid Spin set if you want to do competitive. But other than that, I would say something like Scald or Hydro Pump, even Water Pulse, get you that boost. Water Pulse has a chance to confuse. Aura Sphere, I think Aura Sphere. No, Aura Sphere isn't a pulse move. There's some moves that are null or do not have the pulse in the name that also get the boost. I don't know if. Yeah, so Aura Sphere is considered a pulse move, even though it don't say it in the name. So, yeah, run that on this thing. You've got good coverage. You've got good special attack. You've got good bulk. This thing just hits so hard. I love Blastoise. Swanna, water flying type. It gets outclassed pretty early on. You got the idea. It's okay in terms of attack and special attack. Okay in terms of speed. But it gets outclassed. Water flying, I think Gyarados would outclass this thing quite a bit if you're wanting offense. And later there's a water flying type we'll see that might be a little bit better in terms of defense. So, yeah, this thing is just not that great. Think of it as a challenge run Pokemon. Volcanion, you don't have access to this, so I wouldn't really worry about it. If you want to know more about this, watch my fire type video. I went a little bit more into detail on this guy. But you're not using them on your team. Now, Pelipper is a Pokemon that has a little bit more defense when we're comparing Swanna and Pelipper. Now, even though this thing has a little bit more bulk, it still is not the best. Now, what we think of Pelipper, we think of it in terms of a rain setter. Here in Generation 6, it is not a rain setter. In fact, it doesn't get access to the Drizzle ability. It gets Keen Eye, Rain Dish. That's it. So it gets outclassed pretty badly. Most people run it for a defensive set. You can see special attacks okay. That's pretty much it. Okay special attack, okay defense. Pretty slow Pokemon. I would say this thing is a challenger in Pokemon. Or if Pelipper happens to be your favorite Pokemon, maybe you want to try it out. But it's outclassed so hard that I would just not really worry about it that much. But now we're going to go into some other Pokemon that can do some work. And one of these Pokemon is actually Barbaracle. Now, I've never used a Barbaracle, but I do have to admit that this thing does have some interesting quirks about it. 115 defense. It's got decent defense. Oh, okay special defense. And okay attack. But it is pretty slow. Tough Claws is really nice. Run this thing with Tough Claws. You can give it Shell Smash, so it's going to boost that speed, boost that attack, and then you're just going to knock things out with, say, a Razor Shell. I would say, yeah, you can also run Stone Edge. So yeah, this thing, it can hit things pretty hard. Watch out for that typing. You get hit so hard by grass type moves, but you have some really good resistances. I'd say you're weak to things that are more common than resist things that are more common, but this is actually a pretty cool Pokemon. I would be interested in trying it out. But yeah, think of it as terms of it's a defensive Pokemon that can set up with Shell Smash. Tentacruel. Hey, we've seen these things plenty of times. We should know what this thing does. It takes hits on that special side. That's what it's made for. Everything else isn't the greatest. But yeah, you want this as a special defensive Pokemon. Water Poison, it has a lot of good resistances. It's made to take hits and just live. So I would say this is a decent choice. Keep in mind, you're not doing a lot of damage, and in a playthrough, you want to mostly focus on damage. But if you're like, hey, I need something that has a little bit more special defense. I keep getting knocked out by things like Flamethrower or Surf. Well, this thing could actually come in and fill that gap for you. Wailord is a Pokemon that, at first glance, you might think, wow, this thing is going to be good. It is not good. 90 for its attacks, it's okay. 170 HP is great, but look at those defenses. This thing gets hit so hard by so many things. And, you know, even the suggestion here is stall, but you're running substitute to try to keep this thing where you can actually have it out there in the field. So, yeah, it's just not that great of a Pokemon. I mean, attacking, probably Scald's your best bet, but I mean, look at that. It's just not doing well for you. Think of this as, this is your challenge Pokemon that you want to run. You want something that is tough to use, and you want to have clout at the end. Also, keep in mind, Heavy Slam, you might think, look at a well and go, oh, Heavy Slam would be good. No, this thing is actually not as heavy as it looks. It's more of the idea of a blimp. So Heavy Slam is just garbage on this move. Your best bet is probably something like Surf or Scald, or, you know, something that will help you out in your actual, you know, playthrough. Like you can Surf on this thing, but it's just a struggle to use. Love Disc is a garbage Pokemon. Challenge mode, that's it. Speed's its only option. It's not that great of a Pokemon. It's outclassed by so many things. It's just a garbage Pokemon. Clawitzer is a Pokemon. I actually think this is a cool Pokemon. It gives you some good special attack. Mega Launcher, we already looked at that ability. That is a great ability. And, you know, it has access to a lot of those same moves that Mega Blastoise does. The only thing is that you've got less speed, and you've got less bulk. But other than that, this is actually another decent Pokemon. It can help fill that gap. Has a lot of coverage options. Clawitzer is a pretty decent Pokemon. Let's say you want speed. You want a water type that is fast. Well, Starmie has you covered. This thing can come in, go fast. 115 speed is great. 100 special attack, it's okay. But it does have some good coverage options. Like if we look down here, that's a utility set, but they don't have a set suggesting like oh, here, yeah, they do. Hydro Pump, great. Surf, if you want to run that instead. Psychic, good stab. But you also have things like Thunderbolt you can run. Ice Beam for coverage. This thing gets a lot of coverage moves. If you want to help its survivability, well, stick Recover on it. Natural Cure, I would say that is your best ability. Whenever you get poisoned, switch it out, switch it back in. You're no longer poisoned. This thing is just a really good Pokemon all around. Cloyster is a pretty cool Pokemon. This thing is mostly known for its Shell Smash. And look at that defense. If you can get it out here on a physical attacker that you're not weak to, I mean, and you are weak to a lot of things, unfortunately, the Ice type doesn't help you out much. But if you can bring it in on, say, something that's a physical attacker that is an Ice type, well, you Shell Smash away, and then you start hitting things with Icicle Spear, maybe, or Rock Blast. And you do have access to Skill Link. Shell Armor prevents crits, but Skill Link's what you're wanting to go with. This thing is so hard hitting if you get that Shell Smash up. If you're using this competitively, usually if it gets a Shell Smash up, you're going to lose something. That defense stat is so great. I think Cloyster is a good choice. It's just the Ice typing is what holds it back mostly, because if it wasn't for that, you would resist the things that water resists, like fire. You wouldn't be weak to fighting or rock. But other than that, you know, Cloyster is pretty decent. It's harder to run in a playthrough than it is competitively, but you might make it work. Qwilfish is a Pokemon. It gets outclassed by a lot of things. It's one of those Pokemon. Speed is okay. Attack is okay. It gives you water poison. But, you know, you do have good resistances. Most of the time, people run this as a defensive set. I've run it as a defensive set. But even with that, you know, it's not the best defenses. So, in a playthrough, it's not going to help you out much. Now, Kingdra is a really cool Pokemon. I love Kingdra. I use this thing so many times. It is a swift swimmer. run this thing with Rain Dance, and then you're going to be outspeeding everything. 85 speed in Rain with Swift Swim. It just outspeeds everything. And it's pretty across the board decent. 95 in attack, special attack, defense, and special defense. So it can take hits, and it can hit back. You've got decent coverage, like Hydro Pump, Scald, Draco Meteor, Ice Beam, if you want to run that. I would say focus on maybe Dragon-type moves and Water-type moves. You got Stab on those. And you have only 2 weaknesses, Dragon and Fairy. So this thing is so good. I love Kingdra. It can hit things so hard in the rain with, you know, maybe a Hydro Pump, a Surf. This thing is so good. I love Kingdra. The problem is that it's kind of hard to get because you need a Dragon Scale and someone to trade with to get it. If you're able to get this thing, it'll help you out quite a bit. Relicanth is one of these Pokemon that's kind of a one-trick pony. It's there for the defense. That's it. It doesn't do much other than that. Attack's okay, but yeah, it's meant to just be bulky and kind of take on the role of a niche. You know, it's bulky and it can take hits, and maybe you can hit something with its physical attack. That's it. Slow, Swift Swim will help it out, though. So it could be fast and it could hit decently hard, but there's a few things that outclass it. It does have good resist, too. Keep that in mind. Vaporeon. This thing is another bulky Pokemon, another bulky water type. Water Absorb is great. Look at that special defense. Look at that HP. You can take so many hits. It can hit back decently hard with a decent special attack. So, great Pokemon. I think this is a really good one. A lot of people run Wish on it, and you can see why. If it can take hits, it can heal itself up and heal up a buddy. I think that's a good thing to have. A Scald, that helps out on that defense side, which is lower. The HP, though, is going to make it have that survivability that it needs with its defense. So I think this is a great choice if you're wanting an evolution and you see that your team is missing a water type. Now we're going to look at the slow Pokemon. Now ignore Mega Slowbro. That's in Oris. Focus on this thing. This is a bulky water psychic type. Good defense, decent special attack, decent HP. You're able to take hits with this thing. You're really slow. If you are playing Oris, look at this 180 defense you get. This thing just takes hits. It is just hard to knock out. 130 special attack, it hits hard back. But other than that, you're running this thing, and say you're like, oh, I need something that's defensive, but I also need a water psychic. That could be well. Slowbro, on the other hand, is more of a special defense mon, so you can kind of compare. They've switched defense and special defense. Pretty much the same Pokemon. Other than that, they get some decent moves, like Calm Mind. I would say Calm Mind is great on both of these mons. Slack Off to heal up. Scald help you out with that defense. And Psyshock, or maybe even Psychic. So great Pokemon, these two. Keep in mind, they're defensive Pokemon. Mantine's a Pokemon that is also defensive, but it's just outclassed by a few things. 140 special defense is good, but the HP doesn't give it much survivability, and you're not hitting back very hard with 80. So I'd say Mantine is one that is kind of outclassed pretty badly. Water Flying, you're going to get hit with electric types and be demolished, likely. So I would say Mantine is probably like a challenge run Pokemon. Huntail is another one that might be a challenge run Pokemon. Now, if you've got Rain, you can make this thing work, and it's got good defense, good attack, and in the rain, maybe good speed. Decent special attack as well. But yeah, this thing can hit some things decently hard. You have access to Shell Smash, which is actually a good thing, too, if you want to actually run this thing. On the other hand, Gorebyss is kind of the opposite. Now, you run Shell Smash, and it has a lot more that it can do, I feel like. Because this thing, you know, you can see Shell Smash, and they're suggesting special moves, but physical is what you want to go with that. So Waterfall, Sucker Punch, and Return. That's just because it's not that great moveset wise. But Gorebyss, it's pretty much the same, but special attack wise, and you got better things like Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Psychic. So I think this right here, out of these two, might be better. because they have the same defenses. It's just this one has better special attack, and it has better move pool in that too. So I would say this is the better out of the two, but they still get outclassed pretty badly. Now Octillery is another one. Now I say this thing gets outclassed pretty bad too. I mean, look at that, 105 attack, special attack. Okay, but it's slow, and it's not very bulky. It doesn't take much to knock it out. Now, I do have to admit, this thing has really good move pool. Energy Ball, Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump. You scroll back down here. Blizzard. You can teach it Bullet Seed, which Energy Ball is what you want to go with mostly, but, I mean, you could make Bullet Seed work with that. I mean, look at that. Charge Beam, boosted special attack. Flamethrower. You've got Icy Wind, Ice Beam, Octazooka, which is its signature move. It's not that great, though. Psybeam, Psychic, Signal Beam. You just have such good coverage. Sludge Bomb. It's like if you're fighting one of these things, it has the potential to throw out any move that your opponent might struggle to deal with, but it's just slow, and it's just not that great of a Pokemon. So I would say Challenge Run Pokemon, not the best. Same thing with Corsola, Challenge Run Pokemon. Look at that. Dismal defenses, terrible HP. This thing wants to be a defensive Pokemon. You can see Regenerator, Natural Cure, but it doesn't have the HP to pull it off, so this one I would just skip. Lantern has a little more bulk. You can take things on that special side, and it can hit okay. It's not the best Pokemon, but Water Electric, I do think that's a great typing. It gives you so many things that you can hit. I mean, even though it's weak to ground, it can hit ground pretty well. And it does have decent move pool. Scald, Volt Switch, Ice Beam. You can give it some supportive moves like Toxic, Thunder Wave, Heal Bell. But yeah, this thing is a pretty good Pokemon. I've used it in my Heart Gold playthrough. Or my Soul Silver playthrough, rather. But yeah, this is a cool Pokemon. I do like it. It is a struggle to make it work because it is slow, and it's not the best in terms of offensive, but I love the typing. Alomomola, this is a great defensive Pokemon. Look at that HP stat. This thing is taking so many hits. Even though its defenses look dismal, it can take hits. Now, a big problem with this is its special attack is actually its lowest stat, and that's not what you want with this Pokemon, so if you want something that can do damage, I would skip Alomomola, but this thing is pretty bulky. It has Regenerator as a hidden ability, Healer if you're doing double battles, Hydration. If you get poisoned, you can get a Rain Dance up, heal it up. Yeah, other than that, it's made to take hits and do support options. Not actually do a lot of damage, but do supportive options. Lapras is next. This is a bulkier Pokemon. It can take hits. That Water-Ice type leaves a lot of weaknesses, but it does have some things it can do. Say you want to run Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, Surf. Ice type is just great overall, offensively. Water Absorb will help heal you up. Just keep in mind that you're pretty slow. You have good bulk, an okay attack, special attack. So this one could help you out if you're finding that you need a water type. It could help you out. Quagsire, this is one that you get later in the game, and honestly, for how late you get it, I do feel like at this point you've came across a few Pokemon that are better than it. It does have a cool typing, Water Ground, so you resist so many things. You're really only weak to Grass, so and it has a decent bulk. So keep that in mind if you want to run this thing. Water Absorb, I would go with that. Be able to heal up. But yeah, you're slow. You can do things. If you feel like you need a ground type and a water type, this might fit. But otherwise, I feel like at the point that you get it in the game, it's outclassed. Poliwrath. This is an interesting typing. Water fighting. Stats. It's got some bulk and it's got some decent attack. Water Absorb can help it with its survivability. But other than that, I mean, it's not the best Pokemon. They suggest a special attacker. Why? I don't know why they would suggest that. Physical attack is what you want with it. But yeah, alright, here we go. Circle Throw. This is more a defensive set. Well, let's just look at its move. So, yeah, you can give it something. And the main problem of this Pokemon is probably its moveset. Because you want to give it something like Brick Break. That's what you're going with. Kind of holds it back. So, I would say stat-wise, it's decent. Move pool-wise, it's got a few things that you would rather have. Politoed is kind of the opposite. Because it's more of a special attacker. And it does have Water Absorb. Now, at this point, its hidden ability is Drizzle, so if you can get its hidden ability, it's great. Other than that, though, decent special attack, Water Absorb, it can take hits, and it can run as a pretty decent tank. But, I mean, there's a few things outclass it, so I would say, think of it maybe a challenger on Pokemon. Wish Cash gives you that Water Ground type, same as Quagsire, but it's got a little bit more HP, but I feel like Quagsire actually outclasses this thing. Now, this thing does get Dragon Dance, which, if you want something more offensive Water Ground-wise, and you feel lucky enough to try to get a Dragon Dance, you could go for it. But other than that, I feel like this thing just doesn't hold up. We've already looked at Ludicolo. Grass Water is a cool typing, and I really think this thing could help you out if you find that you need a Grass and Water type. It's got decent special defense. Special attack is pretty good. Swift Swim will help you out. You can outspeed so many things off that speed. It's got good move pool. Give it some ice, maybe a Giga Drain, Surf, Hydro Pump maybe. This thing is a good Pokemon. Now, Floatzel is also a decent Pokemon, but this is more on the physical side. We're looking at 115 speed, so it's pretty decently fast. 105 attacking and hit things pretty hard. I feel like the thing that holds it back, though, is, you know, you want physical attack with that, but the suggestion is special attack, and that's because it does get a little bit better special moves. Now, looking at its physical moves, you know, Waterfall is okay. Ice Punch, Ice Beam would be better, but you've got physical attack that you're working with. Now, Aqua Jet, I would say Aqua Jet is good if, say, you know something is faster than your Floatzel. Other than that, Floatzel's outspeeding a lot of things, so I'd say this is a pretty decent Pokemon. The last water type is, unfortunately, one that gets outclassed. Look at this thing. 92 attack, 80 special attack, and 98 speed. Basculin, we don't have Basculegion here, so it gets outclassed. I mean, I feel like even Simipour was even better than this thing. But yeah, this thing gets outclassed. Its move pool is just not that great. I mean, it does get some decent things like, you know, Zen Headbutt. But if you're running it for an attack and Ice Beam is suggested, well, that just means that you're lacking in some coverage. But yeah, that's all the water types. I'm sorry this one felt a little bit more rushed. It's just, there are so many water types in this game. And I wanted to get through all of them. So, if you like this, give it a thumbs up. Which water type are you going to use? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next Pokemon video.